Welcome to Super Nutrition Academy's Health Class with your host and registered holistic nutritionist, Yuri Elkaim. Tune in each week for up-to-date insights on breaking health news and best practices on how to eat for awesome health. It's time to get smarter, healthier, and regain your sanity in a world of information overload. And don't forget to join Yuri at supernutritionacademy.com so you too can master your nutrition and health.
Hey, Yuri Elkaim here. Welcome to another episode of the Super Nutrition Academy Health Class. In today's episode, we are going to be talking with celebrity nutritionist and awesome all-around girl, Kim Snyder. She's a New York Times best-selling author, and she's got two really good books, the Beauty Detox Solution and Beauty Detox Foods, which I'd highly recommend picking up. They're really good. And in this interview, we're gonna be discussing some interesting things about fish oil, supplements in general. Again, we're gonna be talking about fish oil as if we haven't talked enough about it already with this recent research that's come out with the prostate cancer. But what's cool about this interview with Kim is that she provides a completely different perspective, one that actually a little bit kind of differs from what I would recommend, but nonetheless some really valid points that I think you'll really appreciate in this episode. We're going to talk about the importance of whole foods versus processing of supplements and some more awesome stuff. So sit tight, listen all the way to the end, and without any further ado, let's get into it. All right, guys, welcome. Yuri here with another episode of the Super Nutrition Academy Health Class. And with me, I've got an amazing nutritionist. And if you are unfamiliar with her, you probably know some of the people that she's worked with, and we'll get to those in a couple of seconds. But let me give you her little brief CV here. Her name is Kim Snyder. She's a New York Times best-selling author and the go-to nutritionist for many of the entertainment industry's top celebs, including Drew Barrymore, Fergie, and Channing Tatum. She's a recurring nutritional and beauty expert on The Today Show, The Dr. Oz Show, Good Day LA, and has also been profiled in the New York Times, Vogue, InStyle, Elle, you name it, she's pretty much been in there. And you can find out more about her at Kimberly Snyder, that's SNYDER.net. And without any further ado, welcome to the call, Kim.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Yuri. This is exciting.
Yeah, it's great to connect with like-minded individuals who are spreading a terrific message of adding more plant foods, getting back to basics. And I remember seeing a segment, I think it was Vince Vaughn, who was on a talk show. I don't know if it was Conan or Jay Leno, and he was talking about how he was drinking or trying to drink these green smoothies that you were making for him. I think that was who it was. But
yeah, it's I think he was on David Letterman, and also a lot of my clients have gone on those shows, which is so great about having these celebrities be a vehicle for spreading this message, which we're all passionate about, which is whole foods, getting back to basics. And a lot of times I do work on a lot of movie sets, and people will call it this green sludge, and they'll see it, and some of the actors or the directors will kind of make fun of it at first. But then what happens is they start to see my clients have a lot of energy, and their skin starts looking great on camera, and they just start exuding this glow, this energy. And then one by one, all these other people start, being curious about it, and they start drinking it, and it just spreads like wildfire on these sets, and then in turn through their social media avenues and just through them, these celebrities talking in the press. So again, it's just been a really great way of spreading our message. And, Yuri, you said you saw it's on David Letterman, which, some people watching that show aren't necessarily seeking out this health information. And for them to be exposed to it is really fantastic.
Totally. And in your experience with the actors that you've been around, are they pretty health conscious, or are they just like eating whatever they want?
Well, I think that what I see with celebrities isn't all that different than what I see in the public. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is everybody's concerned, well, maybe my clients are maybe more concerned because it involves their job, but looking good and feeling good. And I'm seeing energy as a really chronic issue across the board where everybody's feeling chronically exhausted. And along those lines, celebrities as well as the general public are exposed to all these little snippets that they hear about in the media, or these supplements, or these companies are paying, who are paying for these studies. They just start to hear like, oh, well, I need to be taking this. And, I heard about this, and, all my friends are taking this supplement. So I think there's a lot of misinformation, and that's not just limited to the celebrities. I think that's for everybody. And so I think that people in general have made things more complicated. And it doesn't need to be that way to maintain superior beauty and health. And so, again, I think it's a gift. I didn't start my career necessarily seeking to be a, quote, celebrity nutritionist. It was the path, it was the universe, God sort of created that way. But again, as I've mentioned, it's been a tremendous vehicle for exposing different people to this work that wouldn't necessarily have been seeking it out on their own. And so I always say, if people start following my program, or they start having glowing green smoothies because they just want to look good, it doesn't matter to me, because what happens is they start to feel really good, and it just starts to open their consciousness as to other parts of their lifestyle, other parts of their diet. So at the end of the day, they're really benefiting, no matter why they were first attracted to it in the first place.
Absolutely. So before we get into discussing some of the recent news that's really kind of taken this world by storm with respect to fish oil, what got you into doing what you're doing now? I think most people that teach health and kind of really try to promote it have gone through their own challenges and struggles. I know that I have. Did you go through a similar struggle? I know you had some weight issues, earlier on. Was that the main impetus for you to do what you're doing now?
Well, I was always excited and interested in science. And at one point, I actually was going to be pre-med, and I had a science scholarship to enter college, and I had this, this whole plan laid out. And then I was really passionate about biology and anatomy always. But, one summer I interned at a hospital, and it was just a very clear moment for me saying, wow, I do not want to work here. I don't want to do this. Just the energy drain I felt, and I was just so turned off. So then my path veered. But naturally when you have something in you, it's always there, and you can't really suppress your calling, your interests, your passion. So as you mentioned, at the end of college, I gained almost 25, 30 pounds, and my skin was completely broken out, and my hair was a mess. So I definitely had personal struggles. And then after college, my first job was in Sydney. It was in Australia. And I started working with this nutritionist, and I was like, wow, like this whole world opened up to me. And I was able to see, wow, I could take my love of science and the body and work in this way, which is about rejuvenating the body through food, and it's hopeful, and it's preventative, and it's not just about drugs and surgery and being in hospitals. And that was, the impetus to go back to that, that passion that never really went away. And so then I started my path, and I ended up backpacking around the world for 3 years, and I consider that, a large part of my education, being able to study in India for months, and China for months, and Africa for many months, really seeing how all these people around the world are able to maintain great levels of health and have low incidences of degenerative disease and prevent aging in many different ways without the so-called advanced, supplementation and technology that we have here in the Western world. So it's been a very interesting journey.
That's great. Well, it's good that pre-med thing didn't work out.
Yeah.
That's
worked
great.
out in its own way.
Awesome. So you obviously are probably aware of the recent study that came out with respect to fish oil, showing that it increases the risk of prostate cancer in men quite significantly. Obviously, it's sparked huge controversy, especially among men. So from your perspective, even without getting to the study necessarily, why do people believe they need to take fish oil, and what would be the purpose of doing so?
So yes, let's take a step back before we look at the study itself, because when an average person comes to see me, or just in general, when people come into my shop, when I'm in there, I have a smoothie and juice shop, and they bring up what they're doing with their health. It seems that the mentality of a lot of people is that fish oil is a basic supplement that everybody should take. And of course, these companies that are churning out the fish oil by the millions are very happy that people feel that way, and that's something that just keeps getting promoted. But just like anything in relation to nutrition, it's important to see the big picture. Mm-hmm. And so the big picture relates to the idea of these essential fatty acids, and there are omega-3s and there are omega-6s. And the omega-6s are important too. It's not that they're bad per se. They help promote immune response. They play a part in blood lipid profiles and metabolic function. But what we're seeing now is that due to the processed diet that most people eat, we're having way too many omega-6s in general. Omega-6s are not only in nuts and seeds and whole grains, but they're in vegetable oils. And, the average person may think, well, I don't have that much vegetable oil. But if you look at any, cracker, chip, processed food, frozen waffles, all these foods, you'll see some of these vegetable oils included. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing, is we do need omega-6s, but people are getting a lot without necessarily trying it all. And then omega-3s are also important. They help to reduce and regulate inflammation. They help with healthy cell membranes. They help to regulate prostaglandin production. So they are important, and they are contained, yes, they are in fish, but they're also in some plant-based sources such as chia seeds and flax seeds and walnuts. So the first thing here is, again, the Western approach is let me take something instead of necessarily getting to the root, which is why is there a problem in the first place? What can I do in my overall diet? So the root is the EFA, the essential fatty ratio between the omega-6s and the omega-3s should be something like, there's a little bit of contention, but it could be 2-to-1 or 3-to-1, or as high as 4-to-1. Mm-hmm. But what we're seeing in the Western world especially is a ratio that's 17-to-1, 20-to-1, sometimes 30-to-1. So there's way too many omega-6s. And then again, the Western approach is let me take something. Let me take the fish oil, which is the omega-3s, because I actually have, and people don't realize, I'm taking so many omega-6s in my diet that I need to take something to try and create this ratio. Where if we looked at the diet and we reduced some of the processed foods and we were able to create a natural ratio in the first place, then we'd be much better off. Yeah, so that being said, the big deal that people make about the fish oil is that we know these omega-3 and omega-6s are essential, but what isn't considered essential is DHA and EPA, which are forms of these omega-3s. And the body, there's a lot of research I've done on this. There's varying amounts to which a particular person's body can convert the ALA, which is the omega-3 fatty acids, into DHA and into EPA. Mm-hmm. So in the fish oil, there's what's called preformed DHA and EPA. So it means when you're taking the fish oil, people say, oh, well, it's great because I'm getting all these, preformed forms of the omega-3s. But again, going back to the big picture, one of the reasons that people aren't able to convert efficiently into DHA and into EPA is because of this imbalanced ratio in the first place. So it means, again, if we were to reduce the processed foods, reduce the vegetable oils, create more of that 2-to-1, 4-to-1 ratio even, versus the 30-to-1, our bodies would be able to convert when we have things like chia seeds and, again, flax and walnuts. It would be able to convert it efficiently from the plant foods. And we'll talk about, I'll just mention quickly, there is, especially when someone's pregnant or nursing, especially if you have concerns about heart health, there are plant-based sources, there are algae-based sources of DHA and EPA that you can take if you're concerned that maybe you're not converting to the same level. We can talk about that in a minute when we get back to the fish oil. But fish oil. So that's kind of the big picture, and then maybe Yuri will get into why I think fish oil is such a big problem in the first place.
So let's go there. So why do you think fish oil is a big problem, other than the stuff you just talked about?
Right. Okay. So yeah, like we mentioned, I think that it's this go-to supplement that people spend all this money on because it's kind of accepted, if you will, in our society that it's one of the basic supplements that everybody needs. So now we've addressed you need to balance your overall diet to help with this, to help reduce inflammation overall, to create that healthy balance. Now, fish oil is it's derived from a lot of these, especially fish that are coming from very toxic water. Some of these fatty fishes, things like tuna and salmon and even halibut. So, and we'll talk about the study again now, but the source of the fish itself is coming from contaminated waters. And the fish are like little filters, which are taking all these toxins through their body and basically compounding them as you go higher up in the food chain. And so when people are taking these fish oil pills, there's different studies, there's different things out there. But you can see that a lot of the fish oil is actually rancid. It has a fishy smell. It's processed. Fish oil isn't a whole food anymore. So we're taking this, we're sourcing from these toxic fish, and we're concentrating it into something that we're taking because our diet is already imbalanced. Now, there is, quote, purified fish oil, and there's certain companies that test for mercury and they test for dioxin and some of the toxins that we're commonly seeing in the fish, but I don't know how sustainable that is. Our waterways are a lot of these fish are in trouble. We're overfishing a lot of the waterways. So yes, there may be purified fish oil, but I say, why not go to the primary source? Again, as I mentioned, if you are concerned, there are algae-based DHA and EPA supplements that can be taken in conjunction with, I'm a huge fan of chia seeds, by the way. Mm-hmm. Eating chia seeds every day or walnuts, you don't need to go up the food chain to take these fish oil pills, which may or may not be contaminated and rancid in the first place.
So are you not a fan of small water fish, or cold water, smaller fish like anchovies or sardines, even like eaten in their whole form, not even in fish oil form?
A lot of my clients choose to keep some of those foods in their diet. I'm not, everybody has a particular, diet that they want to follow. And I'm not someone who's like all or nothing. I personally do not eat those smaller fish. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's absolutely necessary to get in your diet at all to achieve complete nutrition. I'd rather go to the primary source. I'm a big fan of things like spirulina, which is part of my diet. I put them in smoothies. I do consume chia seeds every day, or I put ground flaxseed on my salads. So I don't think that those smaller fish are a necessary component of a balanced diet, although some people choose to keep it in their diet.
Cool. Yeah, good stuff. So with respect to the recent study that came out showing that fish oil is linked to prostate cancer in men, and obviously there's some issues with the study, but I mean, what's your take on the new study? I mean, what do you think about it?
Well, and let's just mention too, Yuri, that it wasn't, the study wasn't like, oh, there's a little increase. It was 43% of an increased level of prostate cancer overall noted for men that take fish oil supplements. 43%, like that's major. Mm-hmm. And within that, it was 71% of the most aggressive form of prostate cancer. So again, it's to me, is it shocking? I think, as I've always said, we need to go back to basics. We need to go back to whole foods instead of trying to correct all these imbalances that we're seeing today with all these different supplements and pills. And if you read, some of the literature surrounding the study, I mean, there's things with, like we talked about, contamination issues in the fish itself, which could be linked to this. And I have found other studies. One was studying men in Norway, where the fish consumption is one of the highest levels in the world, and there's a really high rate of prostate cancer of men in Norway. Mm-hmm. So, we've seen a link in other studies related to this. And there's also the idea that, omega-3 fatty acids, all these, you look even in apple, right? Or all these different compounds, there's thousands of compounds that haven't really been identified in a lab because they're so complex and they're so inherent in the genius of nature. So even with omega-3 fatty acids, instead of just taking them in a whole form or, having the algae or having the chia seeds, now we're trying to supplement it. And there's a danger in doing that because we're not having something natural anymore. And so these really high levels in omega-3s we don't know what that does to the body because it's not in the natural form anymore. Mm-hmm. And, there's people I meet and they've been taking fish oil pills for like 20 years or more. And again, supplements, and I say this in a general sense, but, I just think it's really important that people see the side. It's not the same as real food. And there's a lot of dangers in all these different supplements people are taking. And so I think this study is a great, of course, like with any study, there's going to be controversy and there's going to be, there's going to be points that people will, points of contention. But I think it's just such a great discussion point to bring this to the forefront of the media for us to all discuss, do we need these fish oil pills and why is everybody taking them in the first place? And what is the root of the imbalance? All these things we just discussed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely confusing for the average person because you see hundreds, if not thousands of studies showing the benefits for omega-3s in fish oil for heart disease, brain health, all that other stuff. And then you see this study that comes out with prostate cancer and it's like, whoa. I mean, what am I supposed to do? So, I mean, how do you overcome the skepticism of some people that say that, and, even some research has shown this, that the conversion of ALA to EPA and DHA is compromised and very inefficient in most human beings. I mean, ideally, we want to correct the imbalance and get rid of the omega-6s.
Yes.
I mean, what are some practical steps? I mean, you talked about what are some things that people should avoid, very simply, and then obviously some alternatives that you talked about. So that would be some good replacements. Sure.
So I think that again, it's confusing, and I think that it doesn't need to be. I think that if we were to tap into the media every day, there's studies that come out every single day, and people can cherry pick the results. Something that T. Colin Campbell, the China study always talks about. There's you look who's funding the study, look who's who can benefit from it. It's confusing, but here's the bottom line. Look at the root of your diet, balance it overall, and go to the whole primary source. So the first thing I tell people is avoid vegetable oil because this is throwing your EFA ratio out of whack, which has an effect, which may, and I'll say this, not in a definitive sense, but a lot of researchers believe that imbalanced EFA ratio can have a detrimental effect on your conversion of the ALA into the EPA and DHA. Mm-hmm. So we need to reduce vegetable oil. In my books, in my recipes, I think people in general use way too much oil. We don't need it as much as you think. Even healthy oil, even olive oil, which isn't a whole food, by the way, that's another discussion. You don't find olive oil in nature, but you find olives. So I think when we keep having these processed versions of foods, it can really affect our system. So, but I say, turn down the heat in general, use vegetable broth, bake. Obviously, we need to avoid processed foods, but there's a lot of great brands out there. I think even one that my clients like, Mary's Gone crackers. They're gluten-free crackers, or these commercial brands, Guiltless Gourmet. There's brands out there that say no added oils. And so I think it's important to start looking at ingredient lists and becoming really vigilant of all these safflower, all these different canola, all these different vegetable oils that are in everything, and just start sticking to more whole foods. We can have crunchy celery or jicama with the hummus or the guacamole. It doesn't need to be all these chips all the time. So look where you can cut it out. I'm a big proponent, like I keep talking about, because I think it's so amazing. Perfect whole food found in nature is chia seeds. Mm-hmm. Get chia seeds in your diet. Prehydrate them first, soak them in water, soak them in almond milk, and then put them in smoothies. I have an easy recipe for Chia Seed Delight, which I make a batch for my clients. It lasts them a couple days. They have it on set. They have it when they're hungry. It helps prevent snacking of the less favorable foods. So it's important to plan ahead and do that. And then the other thing, like I said, because, there's a concern of conversion, there's many different brands out there that are an algae-based source of DHA, and now we're seeing brands that have DHA and EPA together. Again, you're going to the primary source. The algae hasn't been consumed by the fish, even the small fish, and processed through their bodies. And, we know all animal protein is to an extent acid forming. Mm-hmm. So going to the primary source, if you do want to supplement with the EPA and the DHA, which isn't a horrible idea. That might be a good idea for you to get off the fish oil pills and switch over.
Cool. Definitely. We do have, I have a lot of our followers who've asked us for like algae supplements and algae alternatives because yeah, it definitely is an area of interest for a lot of people. So that's very cool. What other lifestyle changes do you recommend for, maybe not necessarily rebalancing omega-6, omega-3, because we've discussed that now, but in general, for general health and vitality?
Well,
other than the obvious of getting active and
anyone that's familiar with my program, or if you go on my website or look at my books, one of the things that is a huge crux to the beauty detox lifestyle is the glowing green smoothie. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I recommend across the board for men and women alike. It's something that you can easily make at home. You drink it at the beginning of the day. And what I have found across the board is by having this, and it's basically a mix of, certain green vegetables, certain fruits. There's there's citrus in it. There's fresh lemon juice, which helps your body to absorb the non-heme iron from the greens. It's this complete food that is giving you, again, we talk about your beyond the supplements, just this perfect mix of natural chlorophyll and thousands of different yet to be identified as well, antioxidants and minerals and nutrients and enzymes, and it's a whole food. And, we were talking about nature, the spinach is found with the fiber and the juice intact. I explain this to people every day. There's no calories in the fiber, but the fiber helps to regulate blood sugar levels. It helps to stabilize your system. It cleans you out. So in just one 16-ounce glass of the glowing green smoothie, you're getting over 14 grams of fiber, which is more than some people even get in a full day, or it could double your fiber intake. And I think that, proper digestion, which I talk about is, one of the cruxes of my program, is improper digestion is one of the root causes of so many maladies of the modern day, and so many issues with aging and skin problems and hair problems and all kinds of things. So have your glowing green smoothie. Recipes on my website. Check it out. You can make it at home. It stores well. Don't take anything out. Don't add anything. It's just the whole food. I also think, it's simple things. Starting the day with hot water with lemon instead of reaching right for that coffee. Giving yourself that vitamin C, the enzymes in the lemon. The reason I talk about these two things first is because I have found with working with all my clients, when people start to implement these powerful changes, simple changes, but powerful in the beginning of the day, they tend to feel so much better. that they make better choices later. It just starts to create the ripple effect of establishing good habits that you can build on. And then, maybe I have a salad at lunch instead of that fried chicken sandwich or whatever they were having, so it starts to build and build. Start the day on a good note every day, make the effort, and then you can build on that over time.
Nice. So just before we finish off, what is your definition of health?
Well, I say, you're putting me on the spot. You're just trying to say it in
out
one
of left
sentence.
field.
But I believe, one of the quotes, because I'm known so much for, the beauty aspect. And so I always say outer beauty is a reflection of inner health. So the first thing I always say is beauty and health are synonymous. I don't define beauty in a superficial way, simply like, oh, she's got nice hair, but rather you look better when you're healthier on the inside, right? And so with health, I would say when our body, to me, health is really a function of your body being able to function at its highest natural potential, right? So that means your digestive system is functioning at its optimal peak. You're assimilating all the nutrients that you're taking in. You are excreting all the waste. To me, it's like your body's functioning at its natural highest potential. So it's not necessarily I'm taking all this stuff, but rather is it, assimilating and utilizing? Because I always say you're not just what you eat, you are what you assimilate, what you digest, right? So you can spend thousands of dollars every month on organic food and supplements, but if your body is compromised, if it's not absorbing and assimilating any of it, then it's useless, isn't it?
It is.
Again, it's hard to get that in a short answer, but that's why, I focus so much on optimizing digestion. I talk about beauty food pairing, eating light to heavy, taking digestive enzymes, the right kinds of probiotics. There's so many things we can do to in this modern polluted world to really optimize the way our bodies digest and function.
Nice. Awesome. That's great information. Thank you so much, Kim. So once again, everyone, you can check out Kim's stuff at KimberlySnyder.net. And she's got some excellent stuff there. You can probably also pick up her book, The Beauty Detox Foods and the Beauty Detox Solution, is it?
Yes.
Yes. On Amazon or pretty much any bookstore as well. They're awesome. Great recipes, great information, and obviously going into more detail as to some of the stuff Kim has mentioned in this interview. So with that, Kim, I want to thank you very much for taking the time. We will bid adieu right here. And for everyone else listening, thank you very much, guys. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
Thank you so much, Yuri. It's been a real pleasure.
Absolutely.
Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
So there we go. Our interview with Kimberly Snyder, celebrity nutritionist, New York Times bestselling author. Hopefully you guys got some interesting perspective from her advice with respect to fish oil and supplementation in general. So again, if you're not too crazy about going the fish oil route, you can always look at algae oils, which are really actually one of the best sources of EPA and DHA if that's what you're after. Otherwise, some of the great recommendations she made, eating more whole flax seeds, obviously grind them up because your body can't digest them otherwise. Chia seeds, you can make some chia seed pudding, store them into smoothies. Great ways to get in fiber and omega-3 fatty acids. So just a couple things that we touched on in the interview. Once again, come over to the blog at supernutritionacademy.com/blog to get the notes from this episode. And in the meantime, be sure to take a picture of where you're listening to the podcast at. So if you're in your car, at work, on the beach, working out, take a picture. Tag me in the picture at Uriel Kame and post it on my Facebook fan page. That way, I can give you a shout out to say, hey, so-and-so is listening to this podcast from the gym. Here's a picture and a nice little shout out. So, we just want to keep things cool and fresh and give people inspired ideas of where they can listen to this information from. And if you can do that, that'd be awesome. Again, you can just post it on my Facebook page. You can just find me on Facebook. Just type in Uriel Kame and you'll find my profile or my fan page. And that's all for today. So thanks again for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the interview. Have a great day. Keep it healthy. And we'll see you in the next episode.